under kingdom Plantae are called as Bryophyta, commonly known as moss. The Bryophyta are found mostly in moist and shaded areas. So you can find them on the trunks of old trees or on the bark of the old trees. They could also be found growing on concrete walls, especially during rainy season. So these are not to be confused with the algae, because algae usually grow under water. The ones that you see on trees and on the walls are most probably Bryophyta, because they love moist and shaded areas. These are called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom because they complete their reproductive cycle with the help of water. For the fusion of the male and female gametes, water is very essential, but they grow on land. For reproduction, water is required, so they are called as amphibians of the plant kingdom. Body may be either flat, that is a thalloid body, or it could be upright and erect. And they lack root, stem and leaf. Instead of them, root-like, stem-like and leaf-like structures are seen. The root-like structures are called as rhizoids. This could be either unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. The main body of the Bryophytes is haploid in nature, meaning it contains half the number of chromosomes, and this is the one that produces the gametes. Therefore, the main plant body in Bryophyte is a gametophyte. Phyte means body, the body that produces gametes. In Bryophytes, gametes are produced either on the same plant or on two different plants. So the male sex organs are called as antheridium, which produce the male gametes, antherozoids. These antherozoids are motile, they move along with the help of flagellum. The female sex organ is called as a archegonium, which is a flask-like structure. It produces a single egg. So, along with the help of water, the antherozoids will swim in the water and they reach the mouth of the archegonium. Then they enter into the archegonium where fertilization takes place. The fertilization will result in the formation of a zygote, that is diploid. This zygote does not undergo meiosis immediately, but it develops into a complex structure called as a sporophyte. The zygote is diploid, sporophyte is also diploid. The sporophyte can be differentiated into a basal foot portion, a middle seta and a upper capsule portion. This could be poorly developed or well developed. The capsule is the structure which produces the spores. So when the sporophyte grows to a particular size, the cells of the capsule undergo meiosis, that is reductional division, producing the haploid spores, again half in chromosomal number. These spores fall onto the soil or onto the substratum and germinate to produce the gametophyte. So the main plant body what we see is a gametophyte. The sporophyte, which is diploid, is seen for a short period of time. The Bryophytes do not have much economic importance to human beings, but because moss covers the entire forest floor, etc. It plays a very important role in preventing soil erosion due to rainfall. So they form dense mat, and these also provide food to certain herbivorous animals, birds and other mammals in the food chain. Not only that, a type of moss called as sphagnum, it forms a peat. This peat is used as a fuel, and the sphagnum moss has excellent water holding capacity. Therefore, sphagnum moss is used as a packaging material for transportation of live plants. You would have seen that green colored substance like a sponge used for transporting ornamental plants, etc. That is nothing but the moss with excellent water holding capacity, sphagnum moss. That is economic importance of Bryophyta and its main features. The vegetative propagation is with the help of fragmentation. Asexual reproduction is with the help of spores. Sexual reproduction is with the help of antherozooids and eggs. So fusion of gametes is seen. The Bryophyta can be studied under two important categories, that is the moss and the liverworts. In the liverworts example we have Markantia, and also another example for liverworts is Rixia. Rixia and Markantia are examples for liverworts. As the name suggests, their body is flat, they are dorsiventrally flattened. So because it has a thalloid body, we call it as a thallus. The thalloid plant body, it produces rhizoids which will help to attach to the substratum. Asexual reproduction is with the help of fragmentation. This thallus breaks and the fragment will grow into a new individual, or in the thallus there are specialized cup-like structures called as gemma cups. These gemma cups produce gammae. These gammae detach from the thallus, fall to the substratum and produce a new gametophyte. That is asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction, the male and female gametes, that is the antherozoid and the egg, may be produced on two separate plants, or both the sex organs are present on the same thallus, and these produce the gametes which follow the same cycle as we discussed earlier. That is about the liverworts which have a thalloid body. On the contrary, moss, they have a erect upright body. Example, Funaria and Sphagnum. Body is erect. This body is developed directly from the spore. So the spores germinate, fall onto the ground, and these spores, they produce a first stage called as the protonema. Proto means first. So the spores germinate to produce a protonema. These protonema are creeping. They creep or they crawl on the ground layer, which is green and branched, meaning they can prepare their own food. They are photosynthetic. From the protonema, lateral appendages develop called as secondary protonema. From these secondary protonema, we get the second stage called as the leafy moss stage. Primary stage is called as the protonema stage, secondary stage is called as the leafy moss stage. They produce spiral rosette like leafy structures. These are attached to the substratum with the help of rhizoids, and this leafy moss stage produces the sex organs. These mosses, they have a much more elaborate sporophyte which is more complex than the liverworts. The food seta and capsule are much more well developed, and the moss, they have a complex mechanism of spore dispersal. Therefore, we can find moss almost everywhere, whereas liverworts, they are restricted to certain habitats. That is all about the second type of plants, that is the Bryophyta, or famously called as the moss. Next we discuss about Teredo Fighter. The third group of plants that we are going to discuss are the Teredo Phyta, commonly called as the ferns or horse tails. You would have seen this growing on top of other old trees, or during the rainy season you may find them growing inside the wells as long slender stems with long leaves. These are also used in bouquets. These are the ferns or the Teredophytes. Usually they are found growing in moist shaded areas. They like cool, damp, moist areas. Because of this specific requirement, as compared to the mosses, the ferns have a very narrow geographical habitat, so they are found in very few areas, and these are the first plants to possess true root, stem and leaf. Both in the algae as well as in Bryophyta, there were no stem, root or leaves, but these have leaf, stem and root, and due to this, these are also the first plants to show vascular tissue. In algae and in Bryophyta, xylem and phloem are absent. The leaves, stem and root possess xylem and phloem for the first time. The main body of the Teredophyte or ferns is a Sporophyte, which is diploid in nature. They contain a complete set of chromosomes. So when you see inside the well, you look at the plant. So what you are seeing is a Sporophyte, which is the dominant phase in Teredophytes. In Bryophytes, the main plant body, the dominant phase, is a gametophyte. Now the stem bears leaves which are green in color, photosynthetic. The leaves may be small, called as microphyll, as seen in Selaginella, or the leaves would be large, called as macrophylls, as seen in ferns. The stem bears leaf-like appendages called as sporophylls. So leaf-like structures which bear or which hold the sporangia. These sporangia are the structures that produce the spores. So sporophylls produce sporangia, which produces the spores. In plants like Equisetum and Selaginella, the sporophylls will come together and form a compact structure called as the cones, as you can see in the diagram, Equisetum and Selaginella. Now, in Pteridophytes, mostly all the plants are homosporous, meaning they produce only one type of spores, whereas in Salvinia and Selaginella, these are heterosporous. They produce two different types of spores, one large spore, another small spore. The large spore is called as a megaspore or macrospore, whereas the small sized spore is called as a microspore. The macrospore produces a female gametophyte, whereas the microspore produces a male gametophyte. reproduction is done asexually through the production of spores. Vegetative propagation is through fragmentation and sometimes budding. Let us look at the sexual reproduction in Pteridophytes. As I told you, the main plant body what we see is a sporophyte. It is diploid in condition. Sporophyte, body that produces spores. How will it produce a spore? It undergoes meiosis. So at the end of meiosis, it produces spores which produce a gametophyte called as a prothallus, which is haploid in nature. The gametophyte is green, photosynthetic. It is independent, free living. It can prepare its own food. It is not dependent on the sporophyte. The prothallus, it could have both male and female sex organs in the same plant, or as in the case of Salvinia and Selaginella, two separate male and female gametophytes are present if it is heterosporous. The male sex organs are called as antheridium, female sex organs are called as archegonium, similar as we saw in bryophytes. The antheridium produces antherozoids, archegonium produces the egg, which are the gametes. Sporophyte undergoes meiosis, produces the gametophyte. Gametophyte produces the gametes. The antherozoids, they require water for their movement. With the help of water, antherozoids swim, they reach the mouth of the archegonium, and fertilization takes place within the archegonium, which results in the formation of a diploid zygote. The zygote will then differentiate, and it is what forms the sporophyte, the main plant body. So the zygote undergoes repeated divisions to form the embryo, which then forms the main plant body, that is the sporophyte, the dominant phase in the life cycle of Pteridophytes. Now here what is very interesting to note is that the development of zygote or the embryo takes place within the female gametophyte. This female gametophyte is sometimes present on the sporophyte. So the female gametophyte undergoes its development on the sporophyte. Inside the female gametophyte, the development of embryo is taking place. This acts, or this is a precursor for the seed habit, as we see in higher plants like gymnosperms and angiosperms. We know that seeds are present inside the fruits or maybe naked. These are grown on the plants, the female plant or any plant. That kind of precursor is seen over here. So precursor to seed habit is for the first time seen in Pteridophytes. That is about the life cycle of Pteridophytes. The Pteridophytes are medicinally very important. So some medicinal properties are present in them. Not only that, along with the bryophyte moss, the ferns are also excellent soil binders. They cover the forest floor or any bare surface with the help of moss, and they also help in the formation of new soil. So along with the help of moss, ferns also help in the process of ecological succession, soil formation and prevention of soil erosion. The Pteridophytes can be further subdivided into Psilopsida, Lycopsida, Phenopsida and Pteropsida. Examples are mentioned in the textbook. So what we have discussed in this last two videos are the three types of plants, that is Telophyta, Bryophyta and Teredo Fighter. The common feature of these three plants is that these are all spore bearing plants. None of them produce seeds, all of them produce spores. Hence, Telophyta, Bryophyta and Teredophyta can be grouped under what is called as cryptogamy. Cryptos means hidden, gammas means sex organs. These are plants where the sex organs are hidden or very small. So that is about the cryptogams. Next we discuss about those plants that produce seeds called as phanerogams in the next videos. Thank you.